Hello and thank you so much for joining me today. I am super excited because I'm going to be starting some seeds off today using the winter sowing method. Now the winter sowing method is how you start seeds in the middle of winter to grow on outside. The great news is you don't need a lot of equipment. You need pretty much hardly any equipment to start off seeds using this method. You need your seeds, which you're going to start, and I'll go through in a minute the type of seed that you can start off using this method. You need some sort of container to start the seeds off in that lets light through. I'm going to be using some milk jugs, and I've also got a few soft drinks bottles as well that I'm going to be trying out for this method. You then just need your compost that you're going to be using, some tape, and something to write on your bottles so you know what you're actually growing on in there. So that's one really positive thing about this method. You hardly need anything to be able to start it. I've got 10 of these containers, so there's 10 different types of seeds I'm going to be starting today. Half of these were mine and half of them I've asked friends for the last couple of days. Have you got any spare milk jugs or anything I can start off my seeds in? The only thing you need to think about when you're thinking about what you're going to use is something that you can put drainage holes in and something that lets light through. So anything that's sort of clear plastic or this sort of plastic will be absolutely fine. You also need something that either has a hole at the top or something you can put holes into the top. And that's so that while they're outside doing their thing, any rain or snow can get in and help keep that soil nice and moist. So that's a really small introduction for me. I'm going to give some more information during the video as I'm sowing my seeds. And right at the end, I'm going to show you where they're going to be growing on in my garden for the whole of winter. So I've got my seeds and I've got my containers that I'm going to be growing them on in. Okay, so first of all, I need to make sure I can get into this to put the soil in and sow the seeds. So I am going to use a knife to roughly cut around. So I've cut round there very roughly, as you can see. I can now put my soil in here and it's still connected this side. So there's still a part of the mini greenhouse, shall we call it, that is still connected. Now I need to make sure there's drainage holes in the bottom. So I'm going to try and use my knife. So I'm just using my knife. You can see that the other side, just to make some holes in the bottom, and I'll probably put 4 or 5 holes in the bottom of this. So there you go, there's holes all along the bottom for drainage. So I've got 10 of these containers that I'm going to be doing, so I'm going to make sure that I've got all of them set up now so that I've almost got a production line. I can fill them all with compost and move on to the next step. So I've now got my line of 10 mini greenhouses that I've got ready to put soil in, and then I've got 10 different cool weather crops that I'm going to be sowing into these containers. So I'm just going to go through the types of seeds that you can use for this method. So it's anything perennial. So if you've got any flowers that are perennial, you can use this method. Any sort of annual flower that is frost hardy, you can use this method. And then any cool season crops, you'll be able to use this method. So that's things like your greens, your broccoli, your kale, salads. If you have a look online, what seeds I can sow using the winter method, there will be a huge extensive list, a lot bigger than the list that I'm giving you now, but that just gives you an idea of the type of things that you can use this method for. One thing before I start sowing the seeds is whatever containers that you're actually using, if they haven't just had water in them, so if they've had milk or juice or anything else, just make sure you wash them out nicely. So I have my soil here. I've dampened it so it is really nice and wet. So it doesn't wring out if I squeeze it, but it holds its form, and that is what you're looking for. The same as any seed starting, you need nice moist compost. So we're now going to take each container and fill it with soil. So you're probably going to need a good couple of inches at least. You don't want too much. And you don't want it too compact. I'm literally just pressing that down to make sure there's no air pockets in there. So I'm now going to fill all of the rest of these up. So that is all of the little mini greenhouses filled with compost. I've used multi-purpose compost. You can use pretty much any compost you like, but just not seed starting, because it just doesn't hold enough moisture. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go along, I'm going to take my seeds and I'm going to follow the instructions on the back here of where to plant them. So for example, this one says sow 0.5 centimetres deep. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the other seeds. So these seeds are absolutely tiny, these oregano ones. So I'm just going to sprinkle them on top. And then I'm actually going to just add a little bit of compost on top of that. And I'm going to make sure I label that inside. So now the only thing left to do is to tape these up. So as I am taping these up, I'm just going to write on them the variety that I've sowed in each one. And I'm also going to write it on the tape. So I've got it on the tape, I've got it on the actual bottle, and I've got it on a label inside. So that's 3 different ways I've labelled this. So hopefully one of them will survive the next couple of months, so I know what's in each one. So that's all of my 10 different crops sown. I'm now going to go out into the garden and find where they're going to stay for the next couple of months. So I've just found a space in my garden. It's next to a wall, and I've just put a couple of garden ornaments at the front of them just to stop any wind knocking them over, because obviously we won't want any wind knocking them over because there's seeds inside that haven't germinated yet. We don't need to do anything else with these. They are completely self-sufficient now. The only time you'd have to check on them and maybe give them a little water if you have a real dry spell. Now in the UK in the winter, that is highly unlikely that we're going to have any dry spells, but you never know. I will just be keeping an eye on them. But apart from that, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to keep you updated with this. Please let me know if any of you are going to try this out, and let me know if you've tried it out already and any tips you have. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you again soon.